Hello again to another video for the Social Work 222 class. The intent of this video is to highlight the timeline assignments, both part 1 and part 2. I'm going to do one recording and then within Blackboard mark a timestamp for the part 2. That way, if you just want to kind of watch it one part at a time, or if you just need to come back to the video, you don't have to, rewatch everything all over again. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to look at the timeline assignments together. So again, this is just kind of the intro to Blackboard, and we're coming into the announcements page because I just want to make sure that you know how to navigate to the timeline assignment. Within the individual units, I have course links to the timelines, but my guess is you're probably going to be working on them kind of on an as needed basis when you have time. And so going to the units may not be the most effective way to get there. So if you see down here under course content, you have timeline part 1 and you have timeline part 2. So let's click on timeline part 1 first. This is a placeholder from the former class. So this information is going to be a little bit different. This is where this video should be getting viewed currently. But below that are the instructions for the part 1 timeline. And then below that, this is a link to the discussion board that is associated with the part 1 timeline. And then we have a sample. We have some information about the differences between social issues and social welfare. And then we have the submission portal below that. So just let's look at those kind of individually. I'm going to start by clicking on the instructions, and we'll look through this together. Now, generally, I don't read through the information as you saw in the syllabus, but the timeline's a little bit different because there's so many moving parts to it. I do want to make sure that we have a chance to focus on the specifics. So let's look at just kind of the individual pieces here. So first, submission instructions. You have to attach your assignment in Blackboard under the tab timeline, which is where you're at now. Once you're under there, you will go to the submission portal and you'll submit as a Word document. This is really important. If you're a Mac user, you have to make sure that you convert your timeline into a Word document. Otherwise, it will not upload into Blackboard. Do not copy and paste your text into the submission box. Syllabus instructions. So this is pulled from our syllabus. You're going to submit a timeline on a social welfare topic with a minimum of 30 dates of key or significant events, laws, or policies related to the topic. The topic must be chosen from the provided list of social welfare programs or by approval of instructor. You'll submit your chosen topic on a related discussion board that'll be linked to the timeline instruction tab. Topics will be assigned on a first come, first served basis. We're going to look at this a little more closely here in a minute when we jump over to look at the discussion board. It'll all hopefully become clear at that point. You're going to select a welfare issue or topic area that you're interested in and trace its evolution from its early events until present. Your timeline should provide a summative overview of the evolution of your chosen social welfare issue through the use and identification of key dates. Each event should include the date, the event, and a short paragraph describing the event. Now I'm highlighting this because in the past I'll get someone who just puts a date and then one sentence that says X, Y, Z happened on this date. And that's not enough. Your dates that you're submitting need to have the date clearly identified, what is the key thing that happened on that date, and then the big piece is why is it important? Now this is an overview. We're going to drill down into the 5 most important ones on part 2, but I still need to know a little bit of context about why that is important and how does it factor into the evolution of your program. References. So do not copy and paste your dates from source material. Make sure that you include an APA style references page at the bottom of your timeline that includes at least 3 different sources. For the purposes of this class, you do not, for the purposes of this assignment, you do not need to do in-text citation. We just need to make sure we have a references page at the end. Your work will be submitted through SafeAssign. The important thing to know here is that I will send your assignment back to you if your SafeAssign is too high. I have a lot of students that will find like a really good timeline on some program site, And then what they do is they end up copying nearly verbatim the information that they find. And so SafeAssign will send me back a link that says this is likely where this student pulled it from. You click on it and then you're taken to the website that shows, yep, this is almost exactly word for word what was said. So the way that I think about your dates is that my suggestion is to go in, find the date, and then read it and act like you are trying to describe that date or a series of dates to your roommate or to a family member who has no context for the class. And without reading it to them, explain to them what that date is. And going through that paraphrasing process and going through and trying to internalize what that means to you will give you a better result, right? Like I have a lot of individuals who will post dates, and they'll go through and they'll talk about like budgetary updates and things like that that they found, and they'll use words like omnibus, and then they have no clue what it even means. They just saw it on a timeline, so they dropped it in, and so you need to figure out the context and then restate that in your own words, your own understanding. Grading criteria, there's going to be 30 key dates identified, 1 point each there. Provide a brief description in the form of a short paragraph describing the detail and meaning of each date. Consider connecting the dates together logically and chronologically, walking the reader through the time period prior to the existence of your program, all the way through modern times. And then you're going to get 20 points for overall presentation and professionalism, spelling, mechanics, grammar, ease of reading, those kinds of things. So that is the overall grading criteria. I highlight this green part because this is one of the common things that I will copy and paste back into the grading feedback on this assignment. Is if you are one of those people that throws me out that one line, I will reduce points and I will cite this when I do. So so make sure that you are giving a fair amount of focus on each of your 30 dates. Below that, there are some pro tips that just talk about ways to help yourself think about the assignment and your approach to the assignment. So which for those I'm not going to go through and read, it's just a one short little page here. So please make sure to read that thoroughly. Jumping back to the timeline part 1, I mentioned that your topic is first come, first serve. So this is a link to the discussion board where you're going to choose your topic. If you come in here to create thread, and you can do this if you click on the discussion board quick access also, it's the very first one. This is where you're going to come in and you're going to choose your social welfare program. So looking at the descriptions here, choose your timeline topic by submitting the discussion board. In order to lay claim to your topic, simply create a thread with the name of your topic as the title. If your topic has already been previously submitted by another student, you must choose a different topic. So one step back here, it's blank right now because no one has submitted anything, but when you click on that link, before you have the opportunity to create a thread, you will see other students post on here. So if you click on here and it says Samantha is doing TANF, then you cannot do TANF, okay? So, so that is what I'm referring to. If that's already on there, choose something else. And then this is a list of the programs that are up for picks. So there are plenty more programs than there are people in this class. You shouldn't have a problem finding one that you want to do. You must select a program policy from the provided list. There are only 2 exceptions. Some of the listed programs are general and you can opt to focus on a specific program that falls under that category. Example would be Section 8 housing. Maybe you opt to focus on the Evansville Housing Authority. So if you want to do something a little more local, which I would recommend if you could find the information for, because every semester I get someone doing Section 8 housing, for example, right? And so I see the same stuff over and over and over again. And if you could find a way to make your topic stand out a little bit, that's going to help you in the long run. So if you want to find a way to focus a little more directly within your topic, do it. Certainly not required. The other exception, all other programs and policies must receive prior approval from myself prior to moving forward. The one thing that I will say about your topics here, let me jump back to the timeline part 1. And the reason I have this area down here where it says assignment topics, The reason I provided the list of the programs is people get really confused about social issues versus social welfare. Depending on when you're viewing this in the class, hopefully there's been a little bit more time to understand the difference. People in the past would write about the social issue, right? So they would do a timeline about homelessness. Well, I don't want a timeline about homelessness. I want a timeline about a social welfare program that focused on addressing the issue of homelessness, right? So permanent supportive housing, that's something that I worked in. That would be a fair topic to cover for your timeline. I want to timeline about the permanent supportive housing, not about homelessness. Now, distinction needs to be made there is that I do think it is okay that within your timeline, if you need to talk about parts of the history of homelessness to provide context for some of the other dates, that is perfectly acceptable. Your timeline should be a little bit of a mix, right? With the heaviest focus being on the program itself. But if you need to talk about the Great Depression, for example, if you need to talk about World War II or something that has occurred around the time of your your program, or if you need to provide context about how we were addressing the issue prior to the existence of your program, then that's fine, right? So and those will count towards your 30 dates. But what I don't want is I don't want 25 dates about the history of homelessness and 5 dates about permanent supportive housing. It needs to be kind of the other way around, right? We need to have the heaviest focus being on your program with contextual dates to help us understand where that falls in history. So that's just to help kind of clarify a little bit about that. I do have a timeline sample on here. So maybe looking at this will help a little bit. Let me see if I can make that a little bigger for you. So this student did their timeline assignment over the Ryan White HIV/AIDS program. So you will see all of the things that I was looking for in the instructions are here, right? So here is the date clearly identified. Here is what happened in short on that date listed right next to it. And here is a short paragraph that says, why is this date important to the overall timeline? They don't have to be huge, right? So like this one was only 2 sentences. So getting a little bit thinner on this side, but if we're knocking out 2 or 3 sentences a piece, or especially if they're longer, you're gonna be okay. But you got to make sure that you dedicate the time and the content to put forth a good faith effort here. So if you look through, that is the format all the way through. Date, what happened on that date, paragraph about that date, all the way through. Now you only need 30 dates. This individual submitted a couple more just because they felt like they needed a couple more dates to kind of get them to present day, and felt that they had some other important things that were necessary to cover. And so that's why we went a little bit further. And then the only thing that is missing here is this is a newer requirement, but at the end here, you will also have a references page. You'll notice that there was no in-text citations anywhere. You didn't see any parenthetical citation. But in a perfect world, you will also have a references page here where you have the references listed of what you used in APA format, and you'll need 3. And then the last thing is when you go to submit, this is your submission portal down here. You'll click on this and you will attach your submission from your computer. So you'll browse local files and attach. Right here, it shows all the forms that you can accept. You'll notice that pages is not a format, which is what Macs use. So make sure that you convert it to a usable file type. And the other thing about this is that you can submit as many times as you need to. So if you submit and then you go through and make changes, or if I tell you, if I go through and read, I'm like, oh, there's something you need to correct here and get this back to me. You can submit to this as many times as you need to, and I will grade the most recently submitted. And I may not even look at the others. So if you submit 3 times, I'll only look at your 3rd submission. So that's timeline part 1. So if you have any questions about this, go ahead and write those down, schedule a meeting with me, send me an email, give me a phone call, and we can talk through those. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of transition within the video to timeline part 2. But like I said, I'm going to timestamp it kind of like you see here. So if you need to come back to the video, or if you want to pick up part 2 later, certainly do that. But for ease of flow, I'm just going to keep this video going. If you want to see how everything connects together, then certainly keep watching the video. All right, so now we're in timeline part 2. This looks a little bit thinner over here because timeline part 1 was covering your topic area, like identifying your topic. So this doesn't look as intense over here. So again, you got your video at the top, you got your instructions. Now I only have one sample on here. You'll see in the instructions that you have some options. This is new this year. I want to try something a little bit different for you guys to give you some more creative freedom. But this is a sample research paper. I'll show you that in a minute. And then here is the submission portal for your timeline. So let's look at these instructions. As I stated, this is a little bit new this year. In the past, what we did is we focused just on this research paper, but I wanted to give you some more options. So here's the general description. This is going to be universal for all of the assignments, or for all the formats. You're going to use your completed timeline, so part 1, and you're going to select 5 of the most significant events, program changes, or policies. Describe how they have changed or impacted your social welfare program or policy as it exists today, using the criteria below as a guide. You may choose any one of the below formats, all which will be graded using the same style rubric for content. So we'll talk about the format, available formats in a second, but what is it that we're actually looking at? So here's the grading criteria. So you're going to have 20 points, a use of a minimum of 3 references, 5 if you choose to do the research paper, and clearly identify them using APA formatting, both parenthetically, or what we call in-text citations, as well as indicating them at the conclusion of your project. 70 points, so this is a pretty hefty chunk. This is a 100-point assignment. 70 points is basically your synthesis or your content. So a clear representation of your synthesis of the information and evidence of critical reflection, as opposed to simply stating facts. Consider the following points. What? Provide a detailed description of each of the 5 events. When? Chronologically build a clear connection between each date. How did one date set the precedent or evolve into the next? Who? Who is being impacted by the event? Who are the winners and losers? Who are the primary stakeholders? Make that a little bigger for you, sorry. Why? Discuss why this event is significant to your overall topic, and how. Reflect upon how the event being discussed has impacted the evolution of the chosen welfare program in modern times. So what we're talking about here is just critically reflecting on the who, what, when, where, why, and how of your 5 dates, right? So I don't want just like a description of this is what happened on this date. I need to know, like in context, why is it important? Why does it matter? And that is probably the biggest grading feedback I give every year when I see a date, is I'll just get like something I could find myself on a website, and but I don't get any like the flavor, right? So this is saying, please give me the flavor of why these things are important. And then 10 points for simply turning in your assignment on time, ensuring the project is logically organized and professionally formatted. And just like the other, I do have some tips down here as well. But let's jump back up here to the formats. So you have 4 different options for your part 2. So the default, and what we've done in the past, is a research paper. Now I do have a sample research paper I'll show you here in a second. This is your fallback if the other things don't appeal to you, or maybe this just appeals to you the most. So this is just simply a research paper focusing on those 5 dates. You'll complete the grading criteria objectives in the form of a logically organized paper that discusses the importance of each date in greater detail. If you do write a paper, you'll use a minimum of 5 references as opposed to the minimum of 3 that was previously discussed. The paper should fall between 4 and 6 pages in length. So I've had individuals in the past submit a 3-page paper and think that they could cover it all, and it just simply doesn't get at enough. There's just not enough space to talk about 5 references or 5 different dates in enough depth to meet all the objectives within that short 3-page. It really should fall between those like 4 to 6 page length. Your other options. So should you choose not to do a research paper, if that doesn't interest you, your research papered out, then you can do a short video. So create a video that's approximately 10 minutes using the below grading criteria. And when I keep saying below grading criteria, I'm talking about this criteria, right? Like these are common elements that need to exist in all of the formats. You'll upload the video to YouTube and provide the direct link in the assignment submission portal. The video can be a combination of pictures, music, text, external video, sources such as news clips. It can also be a video of yourself talking directly to the audience about the given topic. Include citations within the video and at the end of the video or the video description. So kind of two different ways I think of this, and there may be other options out there too. So I'm not limiting you to this, but I could foresee you creating a video where you are maybe doing like a PowerPoint and you are like talking through the PowerPoint, and so like each slide is one of your dates, and you're like talking through that. You could do something like that. You could do something like that as an outline, and then fill up your video adding other stuff, like using, like I said, like news clips and clips from other things. Or if you don't want to do a paper and you're more comfortable doing like an oral presentation, then just film yourself talking about your 5 dates. You know, if you want to do something like what I'm doing right now in this video, and you're recording yourself on Zoom, and maybe you have a reference up, or maybe you don't have a reference up, right? Maybe you're just talking to the camera, and that's your preferred style. You can do that. Just make sure that you do your citations, provide your references either in the video description, or as you're talking, you can mention those as well. So like, according to so-and-so, and then kind of go into delivering your content. So the next one is artistic representation. I don't have a reference here, so I'm really hoping that there are some creative minds out there that can come up with something that would be really cool, that I can use in future classes as references, but I don't have one to go back and look at. So we may have to talk about this if this is something you want to do. But I said, use creativity to represent your 5 dates by utilizing a physical art medium such as drawing or painting, or you could record a song, or you could write a poem or short story, or you could do something like a photo collage, etc. If you choose to do an artistic representation of your topic, please also submit a brief written or recorded explanation as to how each of your 5 dates are being represented within your work, as well as an APA references page. As this is an online class, you'll need to best decide how to submit the work through the online portal. So I still need to be able to grade it through Blackboard, but depending on what your thing is, that can come to me in different ways. And I also mentioned that if you do need to turn the work in physically, then we can work that out, right? So if there is no other option when you do it physically, that's cool too. Or if after the fact, if you do something artistic and it's not something that you necessarily want to keep around, it was just for this class, I would love to have something that I could show other folks. And I also love to just, represent my students' work in general. So if that's something you wanted to turn over at the end of the class as something that I can use in future social work classes, that would be awesome. But yeah, so artistic representation. If there is a creative mind out there, man, jump on this, because I'd be really excited to see what can come from this. And then the last one is an infographic. So create a detailed infographic that clearly highlights each of the 5 dates using the criteria. It needs to address all the major points listed in criteria 2. Do not simply create a timeline as represented in the first picture, but rather consider a broader and bolder way to represent your information. So these infographics are not social work infographics. So if you're trying to get an idea specifically off looking at these, you're not going to get it. This is just to kind of give you a sense of what I'm not looking for and what I am looking for. So doing this in this first picture, this is just a stylized version of part 1, honestly, especially if you're looking at that kind of length. This is the kind of length you should be having for each of your 30 dates, not for each of your 5 dates. So I don't want this. But looking at like the second infographic, there is room for creativity, right? You could go in depth. You could maybe provide a graphic about how many people were affected by a particular part of your date. Or maybe you could talk, maybe you could have some financials represented in there where you're talking about like how much the government put into a particular program, or how many people are affected by that program before and after. The options are up to you. But I'm looking for something more detailed, less this, more this. So yeah, that is timeline part 2. So basically it's a synthesis of your 30 dates, except we're looking at the 5 most important as opposed to the 30 that you were looking at in part 1. And then just so that you do have a reference, if you do that research paper, this is a sample research paper. So this person did supplemental nutrition assistance program, commonly known as SNAP or food stamps. So here you see their date identified. This is one of their 5 key dates. And then here is their description. You'll notice the in-text citations. And then at the end, you'll also notice that they have their references page. Now they only had 4 references here as opposed to the 5. That's because I changed that expectation with the addition of adding these new formats. So, again, here's another date clearly identified. And then here they have their in-text citation, which is great. And then they have their description. One thing I will mention, if you are doing a research paper and you're doing in-text citations, you need to make sure that anytime you're identifying information that is not your unique information and it's not common knowledge, you need to identify where the information is coming from. Like you'll notice just in this one paragraph, this individual noted 3 different areas where they did citation, right? So make sure that I would prefer you oversight as opposed to undercite if necessary. And then the last thing is your submission portal. So you come in here, part 2 submission portal, and you're going to do it the same way, where you are going to browse local files and you're going to submit through there. So, and then again, it gives you the same formatting options. And if you do need to provide like a YouTube link or something like that, if you end up doing a creative, you can do a text submission, or you can come in here and do a write submission. And you could drop your YouTube link in here. So if you're going the creative route and you can't figure out the best way to submit it, just get with me and we will figure it out together for sure. Because I encourage that creativity and I will find a way to make it work. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here. Again, I know this is kind of a longer video. Hopefully you took my advice and maybe just chopped it in half and approached it as necessary. And hopefully you're looking at this by week 2. And like I said in the intro video, week 1 and week 2 are a little bit heavier. Once we get past week 4, the class really kind of mellows itself out a little bit. So I know it feels like a lot up front, but it does smooth out for sure. So just kind of bear with me, and then work with me, talk to me if you're having problems, questions. Just get with me. I'm super easy to work with, and I'm happy to help in any way I can. So thanks again. I really appreciate the time, and I look forward to seeing what you guys put out. Man, hopefully someone takes me up on this creativity route, does something artistic. I'm super excited about that for sure. So, all right, guys, take care.